Here is a way where you can digitalize your anecdotal notes log or any type of logs that you want to make digital and easy for you to use. So what I did, I went ahead and started a Google form. As you can see, this is of course a sample template. I went ahead and just titled it. I'm just missing my title here under untitled form, but anyway, I can go back and do that later. So what you're going to do is you're going to add all the information that you would like on your spreadsheet. So I have my title, I have my student name, and yes, I will go ahead and if I were you, I would go ahead and type in all of your students' names here using the multiple choice option. Of course, I have my date, and then I have my notes. Of course, I have it in form of paragraph because my notes sometimes might be lengthy. And this is where you can, of course, expand the different sections that you're going to want and add the different questions to your Google form that you need to be filled out. So from here, I will go to responses, and then I'm going to go to the create spreadsheet button. I'm going to create a new spreadsheet because I didn't title it. I'm just going to quickly add my title, anecdotal. Create. Okay, so this is going to be my spreadsheet that all my responses are going to flood into. So here is what you do in order, oops, I went too low, in order to have them flood in a more organized manner. So everything, of course, is going to flood here, but the trick to getting them each student on its own separate tab is, of course, you go ahead and add tabs. Give me 1 second. Okay, here we go. I'm sorry, I had to move my record button. So at the very bottom, I'm going to go ahead and rename this first sheet as sheet 1. Sheet 1 together, no spaces, and that's it. Okay, so I am going to add a sheet, and I'm going to go ahead and make this my template. So rename template. So on this template, I'm going to insert I'm just going to go ahead and start at column A, row 3, just in case I need to add any titles, make it pretty and whatnot. But I'm going to add my formula to cell A3. So this is where I am going to input my formula, and I am copying this formula off of another sheet I already have. So here's my formula, Control copy, and then I'm going to go ahead and make sure this cell is still highlighted, and I'm going to paste this formula here. So right now it has an A because there's no information on sheet 1. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to I don't know if you noticed, but on the formula, let me click back on that cell. It says test, comma test. This is where your student last name and student name is going to go. But because I want to test it first, I'm going to go ahead and put test, comma, space test, just so that I can test it out to make sure everything does flood in here smoothly, correctly, whatnot. So let me go back. I am switching tabs over to my Google form, going back to questions. I'm going to go ahead and select the preview so that I can submit. So I'm going to go ahead and select test. Let's say today's dates, and then I'm going to go ahead and fill out testing, submit. So this should flood to my spreadsheet. So I'm going to go back to my spreadsheet. So I'm just going back to the very top and selecting the spreadsheet. So as you can see on sheet 1, let me scroll up. It has the information, today's timestamp, the student name, the date, testing. So everything flooded through on sheet 1, but this is not the important part. So I'm going to go down and select the second tab. I'm going to rename this, or no, I already did, template. So this is my test. So as you can see, because I filled out the student name under test, this is how it's going to flood through. So here's the student name, test, date, and then my notes that I put in was testing. Of course, you can make it pretty. I'm going to show you, maybe not, because I have, well, wait, yes, I can. So I'm going to show you what mine looks like. Wrong one. So that you can see how I was able to format it. So here's mine. This is my test one. So of course, this is what I mean by, you can go back and make it pretty later. Or you can, well, yeah. So I went ahead, and this is why I saved the couple of cells above 3, so that you can add rows if you need to add more information. This is what the information I put in. I went ahead and using I went ahead and made this pretty, made this look the way I wanted it to look on the testing sheet, so that I can just copy and paste the next sheets to reflect the same format. So this is where you would make your columns wider if you need. So for example, on the notes, I of course would need a wider selection for my notes. Maybe for the name, depending if they have a longer name, I might make that a little bit longer. You can center it and make it go to the left, to the right, however. So this is where you just make it pretty. And then from here, I'm going to go ahead and go down and select the duplicate. I'm going to duplicate this sheet. And this is where I'm going to start making my own individual students. Yes, it's time consuming for the first time, but this is the only time you're going to have to do this. So it's 100% worth it, I promise you. So I went ahead and copied the template, and of course I would rename it with the student name. So I have Presley Elvis, and I normally like to go ahead and add the tabs. In alphabetical order. That one's just the one that came to mind. I don't even remember what the other name I had. Oh, Brett Favre. So Brett Favre would have been my first one, but either way, I can move it later. So here's Elvis Presley. So I myself, of course, you don't have to do last name, first name, but I just like to organize it that way. So I'm going to go ahead here and select cell A3 again, because this is where I had my formula. So what I'm going to do is as I'm adding each student, I'm making sure I am changing the student last name and student first name. So all I'm going to delete is test, comma, space test. And then I'm going to add, just like it has to match the way you wrote the student's name in the Google form. So because I wrote it as last name, comma, space, first name, that's how I have to input it here. So Presley, comma, space, Elvis. And that's it. I just click away from it. And if you notice, all the information here deleted, because the information that was here previously belonged to student name test. But because I changed the formula, and now only Elvis Presley's information should flood into here. So going to go back to my Google form, submit another response. I'm going to go ahead and select Presley Elvis, today's date, just so that you can see how it works again. And then test, submit. So I should be able to go to my Google form. Here's Elvis Presley, and as you can see, it flooded in and filled in just beautifully. So one thing to keep in mind, whatever you write in the Google form here is exactly what's going to flood into your spreadsheet here. After it's been submitted, at least I haven't figured out a way, but you cannot edit the information. So let's say I want to edit this note and I don't want it to I want to maybe add something to it. If I do, everything just deletes. So let's say I go test, I don't know, test Ding. Enter. As you can see, it causes an error. So whatever you did just messed all of this up. So don't panic, just hit the back button and you're good. One thing, a workaround that I have figured out is, let's say I left something off that I really did want to add. I went ahead and just submitted a whole new submission, a whole new submission in a response in my Google form. You can even put like an asterisk or something to add on to the previous note, or see previous note, or a continuation of previous note, etc. So you would just need to resubmit another response. But I think that is it. I hope that this makes your life much easier. And of course, here you would just continue adding your students. So I would right click on this student, and to help me keep organized, I just make sure myself organized, or to keep up with, to make sure that I am renaming those students. Sorry, that didn't make any sense. Rewind. As I was duplicating these forms, I went ahead and made sure I renamed it to the correct student. So I had Brett Favre. And then I went ahead and just double clicked, copy, went to cell A3, highlighted Elvis's first name and last name, control paste, and voila. Let me know if you need any further assistance.